Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, the latest vax attacks. The state health department moves to roll back required school vaccinations for chickenpox and 3 other major diseases. We asked local experts what it will mean for the health of our kids and our community. Later in the program, a local guide to the strange but mostly true narrative of Northeast Florida's hallowed and haunted spaces, the best destinations for legend tripping. But first, if you were born after 1972, you probably don't carry the telltale smallpox vaccination scar on your upper arm. And that's because the contagious, repellent, and often fatal disease has been effectively eradicated by a vaccine. Here to help us understand how a scientific triumph has turned into a political wedge issue, we are joined by Dr. Ali Kazraian, president of the Duval County Medical Society. Dr. Kazraian, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Actually, immediate past president, so that reign has been lifted.
Passed the torch. All right.
Passed the torch, but I'm very, very honored to be here as a father of 3 children under 7. This is a very, the topic very near and dear to my heart.
All right. We're also joined by Dr. Nancy Stotz. She is an anesthesiologist and vaccine advocate here in Jacksonville. Good morning, Dr. Stotz.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks for having me.
It is very nice to have you back. We're also joined via video by Dr. Frederick Southwick with the UF Health College of Medicine in Gainesville and an infectious disease specialist. Dr. Southwick, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Southwick, you'll be at a Department of Health workshop in Panama City Beach tomorrow, Friday. What do we expect will happen there?
I'm really not sure. There's been very little information. We have received the bill and also received the new instructions for vaccines in the preschools and K through 12 and daycare centers, and they're showing that they're deleting 3 vaccines if this passes.
And so these are essentially revisions to a rule that's called the Immunization Requirements, Public and Non-Public Schools, grades preschool, kindergarten through 12. And so there is a draft that exists of their proposed changes, but it has not been publicly released. It has not been put on a website. And so your understanding is what, Dr. Southwick, in terms of the diseases that they might be targeting?
Yeah, the 3 that I saw on the instructions were the hepatitis B vaccine. The second is the chickenpox vaccine. And the third, which is to me the most disturbing, is the Hib vaccine, Haemophilus influenza, one of the most virulent and aggressive bacteria to infect children in the past. And I actually have personal experience as a pediatric. I served as a pediatric infectious disease physician for 2 years in Boston in 1983 and 1984. The vaccine came in 1985. So I saw the consequences, and believe me, they were devastating. And we know if the vaccine is not required, herd immunity will rapidly vanish, and these infections will come back. And that's very disturbing. In the United States, prior to the vaccine, there were 20,000 serious infections hospitalizing children each year. And the estimate is that in Florida, there will be approximately 1,000 children hospitalized with this infection if they stop requiring the vaccine. And I have some slides showing some of the types of infections that they suffer with. They're very serious. For instance, you can get or what we call orbital cellulitis, an infection of the eye socket as a consequence of sinus disease. You can develop pneumonia. You can also that was the leading cause of otitis media in the past, and it's a very serious form of otitis. And also sepsis was associated with a significant mortality. And the other one that was or we saw quite frequently was bone infections, osteomyelitis, which actually could result in damage to the growth plate and then shortening lack of growth of that limb after the infection. And finally, the one that was most feared, pediatricians were terrified by this infection, that was bacterial meningitis, which was associated with approximately 20% mortality. 30% of those that survived had serious neurological deficits, and one of the big ones was deafness. So children became deaf. So if we stop requiring this vaccine, these are the infections we are going to see. And the estimate is that this will cost the state between $50 million and $80 million per year.
So, Dr. Southwick, one of the reasons we're talking to you remotely is because you will be at this meeting tomorrow. Why is it important for you to be there in person?
It's because I saw all these infections, I am very fearful of them coming back, and therefore I want to do everything. As a physician, as I have 5 grandchildren, and 2 of them are in Florida. I want to make sure that our children are taken care of. What a tragedy. Imagine if you were a parent and you didn't really understand the vaccines, you decided to opt out, and your child got bacterial meningitis due to Haemophilus influenza and died or was left deaf. How would you feel? Should the state put parents in this situation? I don't understand why they would want to do this.
Dr. Stotz, why is this happening? I mean, the state, the advocates of this have largely painted removing these as mandatory vaccines as a move towards more parental choice. Is that not a good reason for health department officials to, provide some leniency in the kinds and the number of vaccines that are required?
Right. Great question, and thank you for asking. So the question why they would do this is really quite baffling to us in the medical profession, as Dr. Southwick has illustrated. The truth is there's already an opt-out policy, and it's quite easy to do in the state of Florida. We have 11% of our kindergartners have opted out of the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella. You can just sign a form and it's done. So we already are seeing the effects of the easier opt-outs without removing the mandates in many states, including Florida, South Carolina. Many states have had outbreaks. What's more concerning about this is a widespread removal of a mandate, which impacts not only the number of children who will get the vaccine, but also whether insurance companies will continue to cover it, meaning the cost could go way up because they can now charge what they want pretty much, and our most vulnerable and economically disadvantaged may not even be able to afford a vaccine if they want it. So where's the parental choice in that is my question.
Dr. Kazraian, this is an issue. I mean, as you said, you're the past president of the Duval County Medical Society. Remind us who in that role you represented, and what is the position of that of that group? Is there a consensus?
So, we addressed this a few months ago, where this seems, unfortunately, over the past several years, a question that has come up repeatedly over the pandemic, and now, unfortunately, is hitting the childhood vaccines. And the Duval County Medical Society represents the medical community in Duval County, and has relationships with other organizations in the surrounding counties, including the pediatricians in our county. And ultimately, we are advocates for our patients and here the children and their parents. And to me, this becomes really as simple as the conversation we have day to day with the patients in front of us, is assessment of risk benefits of what is best for the person sitting in front of you. And on top of that, what makes this more complicated is that decision affects your community at large. So when we talk about the idea of herd immunity, you need herd immunity to be at 95% in order for not only a community to have the safety of the vaccine translate a generalized safety of these diseases being controlled over the community, but to allow the people that make choices to not be vaccinated or cannot be vaccinated, very young children, infants, babies that are just born, immunocompromised patients, elderly people on chemotherapy, those type of patients who are a bit more compromised for these type of diseases, to be able to feel comfortable walking into public areas, to schools, to functions, so that airplanes, and not feel concerned now, amazingly in 2025, of getting diseases that are incredibly contagious, measles being an example, and diseases that a lot of times physicians have not seen. We're in a generation where patients and physicians have not seen measles, which can be as common as a rash. A lot of pediatric illnesses have very nonspecific fever and rashes. So it's going to be a very difficult thing for us to now differentiate diseases that fortunately have been either eradicated or so close to eradication that we have to now relearn how to see them with a completely preventable, safe, data-supported, widely studied solution that should be heralded as one of the greatest tools and scientific accomplishments in our history.
And you mentioned herd immunity, and you said that in order to be effective, that a vaccination or that a community needs basically a rate of 95% to prevent it from becoming a larger contagion. Right now, Florida's kindergarten vaccination rate is about 90%. I think a lot of people would hear that and think, well, that sounds pretty good. 90%, right? There's hard to imagine a lot of things that 90% of the public is actively doing. Why is that not sufficient? And what could that bring?
Well, the idea with it is you walk into a classroom and someone may be, you don't know who's not infected, who could be immunocompromised, who could have a grandparent who's immunocompromised. And then you take a virus, for example, that may not affect the person that is now carrying it, but then transmits it to someone else that may be immunocompromised. So that this 6 degrees of separation of a virus then can perpetuate through a community. So the idea of decades of research showing that 95% allows enough people in a community to be vaccinated, that the few and far between who are not, the viruses and the bacteria and these disease state carriers do not have enough of an ability to proliferate with enough strength to be able to create disease in the individual to the strength that it can be fatal to large amounts or cause them great illness. So the morbidity and the mortality of the disease become less, but also it doesn't turn into what we're now seeing in various communities where you're getting measles outbreaks.
Dr. Southwick, I wonder if you can just touch a little bit on the concept of public health. Dr. Kazraian is saying, the role of his group, is ultimately to represent the doctors and who are representing for their patients. And there's that relationship that a doctor has with their patient where they can make individual recommendations based on circumstance, based on the preference, for instance, of the parent. Are public health officials theoretically tasked with something different? Are they supposed to be considering larger impacts, community-wide impacts?
Yes, and this is the problem. We are a very individualistic society. In some ways, that's good. But when it comes to infectious diseases, we all sink or swim together. In other words, if a significant group chooses not to be vaccinated, that infection will remain active within the community. And those that aren't able to generate a good immune response, such as the immunocompromised and very young children and pregnant women, they will become infected, and they will be really innocent bystanders. And it's the consequence of deciding, I just worry about myself. I don't care about my neighbors. When you have that attitude in public health, infections persist and infections spread and people suffer. When these vaccines, particularly, I can tell you that I looked up the Hep B vaccine. It's really, they're other than local inflammation and a low-grade fever for a day or two, there are no significant side effects from this vaccine. And it's true of these other vaccines as well. The chickenpox and the hepatitis B are also very, very safe. They've been around for decades now, and we're very comfortable with them. So the reason for doing this is really a personal, the desire to be free and to do what I want to do without concern for my community.
We've got a couple calls I want to get to, but Dr. Stotz, I just briefly want to ask you, because it doesn't seem that long ago that a lot of people were very much on the bandwagon. Let's flatten the curve for COVID, not just because other people might get sick, but because it's going to be a burden on first responders. It's going to be a burden on our healthcare system. We understand that there's kind of all of these attendant impacts if there's a lot of disease. What happened to that sentiment?
Yeah, well, I think there's signals from our highest leaders that this is something you should want. And when our own Surgeon General is basically advocating for not getting vaccinated, that is a huge, huge problem, as Dr. Southwick has said. And the difference in COVID, I don't want to do too much to compare this to COVID, because unlike COVID, which we had very little time to understand how would it impact children, for example. As it turned out, it wasn't that bad on children, but we didn't know that. We know that Hib, for example, in a child less than 6 months, or measles in a child less than 6 months, has a huge risk of causing hospitalization. 20% of babies under 6 months will be hospitalized if they get measles. So we are playing with fire here, absolutely.
If you're just joining us, we are talking with three experts about immunizations and epidemiological health ahead of a meeting tomorrow that the State Department of Health is having, looking at rolling back 4 currently required school vaccinations for children. If you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org and find all of the quick links to connect with us. We have a call from Eric in Arlington. Good morning, Eric. Go ahead.
Good morning. A couple things. First thing, as a person who's vaccinated and who made sure that my children were vaccinated and did the socially responsible thing, I kind of resent these goobers that are running around not getting their kids vaccinated and saying, "See, nothing happened," because 75% of us out here did get vaccinated, and that's the reason nothing happened. That's the reason why the unvaccinated are not getting sick, is because 75% of us did this socially responsible thing. The second thing is, as a parent, the state can take your child if you're not providing good care to them, like if you're not feeding them, if you're doing anything that endangers them, the state can take that child and put it in better circumstances. Why is it the state can't, if someone refuses to vaccinate their child, which is putting their child at risk, why can the state not come and scoop that child up and put them in a safe environment? Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Eric. I mean, that's sort of two questions. Dr. Kazraian, the idea that there's perhaps some risk in being too well vaccinated, that the community forgets some of these illnesses. People don't remember how really terrible and life-threatening things like smallpox were, right? And so that's partly what he's asking. But also, I mean, is there any precedent for not attending to your child's needs through vaccinations serving as a springboard for state intervention?
I mean, the first thing I commend the insight into what he's saying, and I think for me, a lot of these discussions come down to the fact that when we are so free to give personal choice to not vaccinate with this very specific issue, we got to be mindful that we are taking choice away from all of those who choose to vaccinate and believe in vaccination for their children and themselves. Because if that, again, like we talked about, herd immunity decreases to where it's now and moves towards 80%, and he mentioned 75%, in those numbers, then when you are putting your child, your smaller children, your 3-month-old in daycare, those type of things, are you going to have the confidence that everyone else, what their story is? And we don't have the bandwidth when you're inviting kids to a birthday party, or you're going to a football game, or you're going to those things. There is no way to, one, find out what everyone's vaccination status is. So we kind of trust everyone is taking care of themselves in a way that better takes care of our community. And then secondarily, we trust that everyone makes the same decisions, relatively speaking, for the betterment of the child when we trust vaccines. And a lot of it comes from the fact that we have not seen the polios and the smallpoxes and then all those diseases that have been eradicated because of the strength of this wonderful technology and science, marvel of science that allows us to have these conversations. And that's the strength of the power of vaccines. So I think we need to be mindful as community members and responsible community members. The choice to vaccinate is not only good for you and your family, but it also protects our community to be able to have these kind of conversations and make these choices, because we have not seen the horrible things that these diseases can do.
We've got a call from Mike on the South Side. Good morning, Mike. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? All right, so my thing is, my biggest problem that I have with people with vaccinations, first of all, I am a believer in vaccinations, like for polio and stuff like that, but it's gotten to the point where they do so many vaccinations for stuff, and y'all keep bringing up the COVID. Okay, well, the one thing that people don't address is that the COVID vaccination, one, is a totally different type of vaccination than any of the previous vaccinations. You don't address facts like, and I blame the journalists on this, you don't address there's trust. We don't trust vaccinations because of the way they do it now. You don't bring up the fact that Moderna is a place that which was the first one to establish the vaccinated for COVID, doesn't have a lab. It's not even like a Johnson & Johnson or Bayer or those bigger companies. And or the type of vaccination it is. So if you want to address that, I'd love to hear that.
Sure. And Mike, before you pop off, I would just ask, I mean, is there a reason that you would be skeptical of science developing more vaccines? Would that not be a positive sign of...
Absolutely not. You know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, is that necessarily a negative? Would that not be a positive, just showing that there's advances and there's more diseases that can be addressed through vaccination?
But if it's a different type of vaccination, then you need to realize that, do you understand? I mean, the mRNA, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, mRNA is a different type of vaccination. Normally they would, they give the vaccination to an animal, and the animal will produce antibodies, and then they give you the antibodies. This time it's totally different. They took out the DNA of the cell and injected a cell into you that's basically empty. Well, doesn't that pose a problem, especially when you consider that a corona is a spike type of thing? So you have an empty shell in you now that is programmable.
So hang on one second, because the doctors here would like to address that. Dr. Stotts, go ahead, please.
Well, first, I would just like to say that there is some differences, as you point out, between COVID and these very well studied over many decades vaccines. These have been around, some of them, for 50, 60, 70 years. It's a godsend that we have these vaccines. And I'm just overwhelmed by how soon we have forgotten as a society the ravages of these diseases. And as physicians, we saw this in the emergency room, in the ICUs. And furthermore, the risk of a virus actually surviving in your body is what you should be concerned about. Vaccines do not alter your DNA. That is not true. mRNA vaccines are a newer way of creating them, and I'm not a biophysicist that can explain it in detail, but I can tell you there is no reason to be suspicious of those vaccines. But I will also tell you that viruses like chickenpox, for example, literally gets into your DNA and lives in your body, somnolent, until late in life when you're immunosuppressed. It can reoccur as what we call herpes zoster or shingles.
Sure, and polio can also...
And polio can cause subacute sclerosing encephalitis.
I mean, but I do want to address his questions because, Mike is like a lot of people who have looked into this. They have certain specific concerns. And I know that sometimes as scientists or doctors, you're reluctant to get into the things that you don't know. But how can you address his concerns about the type of immunization that is used here?
Sure. So with mRNA vaccines specifically, one, they're not new. They were not, the COVID vaccine was not the first mRNA vaccine. So the mRNA is essentially think of it as a carbon copy of your DNA. So it's a platform to which your DNA then replicates to create proteins and things of that nature. So with an mRNA virus, it gives a very momentary snapshot of that. So then it uncloaks essentially the blueprint of the virus in question. Here it was COVID and that ring that everyone sees so that your body then recognizes it, your immune system recognizes it, and then basically it disappears. To oversimplify this, and I apologize to all our biochemists and bioengineers and epidemiologists.
I mean, what about the idea that there's something programmable?
So with this, it triggers an immune response. These are not live viruses. They do not enter the nucleus. They do not alter the DNA. They do not program anything right now. They basically allow a snapshot of what this virus looks like, or whatever the mRNA is trying to create an immune response to, so that now your immune system is aware of it and can now mount it, recognizes, so it now can be a quicker response of your immune system. The way your immune system works, from the time you're born and your immune system responds, that's why you go out and play in the dirt. You're going to be healthier in the long run than if you never go outside. Your body recognizes things in small amounts, so that your immune system is now armed with the capabilities of recognition and quick response. So this is what they do. And in terms of studies, the mRNA vaccines and the COVID vaccine specifically, in an amazingly quick time, did randomized tried large number of patients in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands now, of looking at first safety plus efficacy, animals, humans, and then it was done in an amazing time to allow this to get out in a time where people were dying in a pandemic that we in our generation have never seen and hopefully will never see again.
So I want to get to some calls, but Dr. Southwick, I understand that I just want to give you a brief minute to respond to that as well. I'm sorry, maybe we've lost Dr. Southwick. I want to take a call from Sally in Springfield. Good morning, Sally. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I'll just say what everybody is skirting around. This really falls back on our current president appointing RFK Jr., a known vaccine conspiracist, in the positions that he's in. And also, I just wanted to say that these are not singular free decisions that these parents are making for their only child. It affects the rest of us, as others have said, other children, other babies, and even seniors. So it's frustrating for the rest of us that make the choice for our community to see people make a choice that is not for our community.
Thanks, Sally. We also have a call from Judy in Atlantic Beach. Good morning, Judy. Go ahead.
Good morning. My concern and question is, alludes to what the previous speaker, we see on the federal level that they're looking at a 2-year-old receiving the hepatitis vaccine and receiving it at birth if, in fact, their mother tests positive. How is that different from what Florida is proposing, where we're just going to eliminate this vaccine that has prevented so many deaths and also horrible liver disease for infants? So what's the difference between the federal policy and what the state is proposing? Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Dr. Southwick, I think we have you back. Did you hear Judy's question?
Yeah, yes, I did. Yeah, it's not different. It's basically as far as the hepatitis B vaccine, just what's going on nationally is going to go on locally. Now, other states are countering that, and because what if an infant gets hepatitis B in infancy, they carry it for the rest of their lives, and you can't get rid of it because their immune system was so weak. And that you're exactly right; they die of liver cancer or severe hepatitis and cirrhosis. So those children will die. So it's really unfortunate. I do think the way COVID vaccine came in did distress a lot of people, and it led to some distrust in vaccines, which really, unfortunately, was not warranted. I work in the field of bacteriology and virology and immunology, and I can tell you that vaccine, the mRNA.
Oh, I think we lost you again.
Elegant vaccine ever created, in that it actually is a little tiny message and actually a lipid that's ingested by the cells. Then they produce the spike protein very briefly, which the spike protein is from the virus. the cell's immune system recognizes and then kills the virus. And meanwhile, that little message breaks down. It's actually their RNases that cleave it within about 2 or 3 days. So it's not left around. There's no protein involved. There's really no way. There are very few side effects. It's turning out that this is most effective for immune system and the least toxic of any vaccine we've ever had. I've been practicing infectious disease for 45 years. And I can tell you this is the best vaccine we've ever created from the point of view of efficacy and side effects. Unfortunately, it was rushed, so people didn't trust it. The message wasn't good. And now it's spreading to all vaccines, which is terribly unfortunate. So we're going to even suffer more than we did before.
I just want to ask Dr. Stotz, I know you have a comment, but also there is this event tomorrow that's in Panama City Beach, which is about almost as close to Mobile as it is to Tallahassee. So it's not necessarily in everybody's path of daily life. Is there an opportunity for the public to participate in this?
The only way to be heard is to go in person, sadly. There is, if you look on the DOH website in the announcement of this, there is an email that you can email your comments, but they will not be read. They will not be counted. The only people who can weigh into this supposed workshop are people who are in attendance. And you're right, and this is almost Alabama is where this meeting is being held, which really begs of an unwillingness to listen to medical professionals and the general public.
So who should people be reaching out to? Lawmakers in line for this? Is this something that just is up to the Department of Health?
So this is a little bit of an in-the-weeds question, but there is a space. First of all, you should always talk to your provider, your pediatrician, your medical doctor. But I would encourage you to reach out to your local legislators, because what is happening here, and I would just like to differ a little bit on that. One of the things the previous caller said, what's happening at the federal level is a single dose of Hep B that is going to be withheld from women who have tested negative for hepatitis. That is a far cry from what we are seeing here in our state, which is the complete removal of 4 vaccines, the mandate. So it's very different. It impacts our health and safety, which is one of the things that the DOH is charged to do. So I believe this is a violation of our own public health code, and we should reach out to our local legislators. It's going to impact everything from our children's welfare, our economy, our resources. And please look for good information when you're looking for what to do. Talk to people who are really experts. Don't go on Facebook, please.
Well, Dr. Ali Kazraian, Dr. Nancy Stotz, Dr. Frederick Southwick, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Ann.
Thank you.
Up next, the best places for legend tripping on the First Coast. We'll explain right after the break. Welcome back. Well, my next guest has become an unofficial guide to Northeast Florida's urban legends and how visits to some sites have become local rites of passage. Here to tell us about the art of legend tripping is Bill Delaney, Jacksonville City Council liaison and author of Secret Jacksonville, also the co-founder of the Jackson website. Bill, it's good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote a story a couple of months ago for Jacksonville Today, which explores the act of legend tripping. First of all, explain to us what that is.
So legend tripping is a determine folklore studies. It's something everybody knows, even if you don't know that you know. But it's quite simply, it's the rite of passage where teens or young people go out to a location that is associated with some kind of haunting or mystery or some kind of danger as a rite of passage to prove their mettle. So it's going to explore the haunted house for yourself, or going out to the ghost light to see if it's real, or the murder house, that kind of thing,
Right.
and then coming back to tell the tale.
And so this is something that has actually been sort of researched and studied as a rite of passage that teens engage in. It's something that also is rooted in your personal experience. It's something that you have done, and includes some sites that people who grew up in and around Jacksonville will be familiar with. So first of all, I just want to ask you about kind of your early legend tripping in your younger days. And a part of me thinks like, wow, in this period, your dad was also mayor, right? And so I'm guessing there was a little bit of extra, frisson when you're doing this, this sense that like you could be caught. It maybe carries a little extra weight.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But also, when he was mayor, I got to experience sides of town that, a white kid growing up in the beach didn't get to see very often. And so I heard and saw a lot of these other incredible parts of town I hadn't seen before. But that made me like very interested to get in, try to learn the nitty gritty,
And keep exploring.
Yeah, exactly. And that opened the door for me to hear these different legend tripping spots all over town.
And so the first one that you went to, was it the green? The road
Ghost light
on Greenbrier Road.
Yeah, Greenbrier Road. This was a thing, and this was, this is 100% true. Like a lot of these are associated with these kind of wild legends. This one was real. It was on Greenbrier Road, northern St. Johns County. From the 60s to the 90s, it was very rural. It was a dirt road that connected State Road 13 to County Road 210. And every night when you would go out there, you could be sure to see the ghost light, this one spectral headlight that would seem to be coming towards your car before just blinking out of existence. And it was the kind of thing that drew people from all over town. Like I didn't live anywhere near there, but I had a friend that moved out there. They're one of the, the early pioneers to the St. John's exurbs. And, he introduced me to it. But yeah, like I was out there a bunch of times. I know a lot of other people that went there with multiple people, saw it at least a few times without any intoxicating substances involved. Yeah.
So real deal.
Yeah, it was a real deal.
And so what was it?
So there's different stories. Like, of course, like any good legend tripping spot has an explanatory legend. This one was supposed to be a headless motorcyclist that died in a horrible accident and then patrolled the road searching for his head or to encourage people to slow down. But there were other theories that it was light for drug runners, that it was a UFO or swamp gas, but most likely, unfortunately, it was probably an optical illusion just caused by a weird bend in the road where Greenbrier met County Road 210.
Because it did eventually go away.
That's right. So the reason that the optical illusion is the most likely explanation is because they reconfigured the road. It had had this weird dogleg bend, and the idea was that the light would travel, it would be a car coming towards you at a distance that it would look like only one light, but then as it went through this bend, it would turn away from you and disappear behind the trees. And they reconfigured that intersection in 2001, and after that, the light has never been seen again.
So as you say in your article, the truth is sort of less important in a lot of these circumstances.
That's right.
And very often the explanations are almost preferable if they're attached to some sort of horror story or some, terrible incident or a UFO. And I think of that with one of the examples that you draw out is the Neff House, which is itself a historic building and kind of a cool spot. So you could see why people might want to wander in, but it really is this other incident that happened there in the 70s where the family discovered this crazy sphere.
Yeah, so with legend tripping, the legend is basically like it's icing on the cake. That's why sometimes there'll be wildly different stories that you'll hear. The whole idea is it's the hook that gets you to go there and to go interact with the mysterious space. This one, the story that draws people in was a real story, but it's what that's what serves as the icing on the cake. And this is a house up in Fort George Island, out in the Timucuan Preserve. It's now owned by the National Park Service, and it's largely abandoned. But back in the 70s, it was owned by a family, the Betts family. And one day in the early 70s, after a fire, the family was walking in the woods, and they found this strange metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball just sitting in the middle of the woods. And they thought it was odd enough to be a good souvenir, so they took it home. But soon they started reporting that it was displaying some strange properties, that it would roll around seemingly of its own volition, that when you played an electric guitar near it, it would hum back in tune, that it emitted a sound that would send dogs whining, and it started drawing a lot of attention.
It is actually the subject of a really cool podcast that WJCT did a few years ago. Lindsay Kilbride did this, I think it's a 6-part podcast called Oddball, and if you haven't ever listened to it, it's definitely worth a listen.
It is an excellent podcast.
It is really extraordinary. And for people who aren't able to watch our live stream right now, you should go back and check it out, because we're showing some pictures of this sphere and the family that found it. So this is something that has been around, as you say, for a while, but it has gained some traction in the era of social media, in part because people can kind of build it out. They can map it, they can take pictures, they can share elements and their experiences. So has it taken a new turn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that more obscure places can become a bigger deal than they used to be because of social media. There was one in Fernandina Beach called the Wickademus Grave, and that was something that was very local. It was restricted to the local area for probably 30 or 40 years, but then once it got on the internet, people from all over Northeast Florida started hearing about it and going up there. And it became a much bigger deal, and also people taking pictures, and that kind of encourages the bad part of legend tripping that can happen. Which is very often when you go into the space, you perform some kind of ritual to prove you were there, or to try to interact with the mystery. But unfortunately, in a lot of cases, teenagers being teenagers, that involves graffiti tagging and property damage and that kind of thing. So it can be very destructive for the spaces. And
certainly there are some sites that you mentioned, including the Annie Lytle building, Public School number 4, which has been, has been the site of so many visits by young people, but also bears the look of that by now.
Yeah, it definitely bears the scars of generations of people breaking in. That's one that's, it's highly visible. It's the old school that's on the side of 95 in Brooklyn. And, again, since well before I was a kid, generations had been going in there to see if the scary stories were real. They're in that
legend
case.
Folks will have to look that one up in the article to get the details of that. It is riveting, though. Bill Delaney, thanks so much for your article. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
All right. We'll be back in just a minute.
Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
Subscribe to Jacksonville's morning newsletter, Jacksonville Today. More than 50,000 of your neighbors are already receiving this free, fun, and engaging source of local info. Updates, events, voter guides come election time, and a feel-good story to brighten your day. We call it the little bit of joy. Get yours at jaxtoday.org/sign up.
The U.S. spent more than $140 billion over 20 years to reconstruct Afghanistan. The final Special Inspector General's report on those reconstruction efforts was just released. It finds that almost 30% of that money was wasted. The report says, quote, the Afghanistan mission promised to bring stability and democracy to Afghanistan, yet ultimately delivered on neither. We'll take a deeper look on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
The U.S. economy is sending mixed signals these days, from strong spending on Black Friday to a rising number of layoffs. In some cases, it sent no signals at all, with federal economic data missing or delayed. What we know about the state of the U.S. economy right now for consumers, job seekers, and companies, and what it could look like going into 2026. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, while Nights of Lights dominates downtown St. Augustine, not everybody wants to brave the traffic to find the Christmas cheer. For the second year, there's an option in the county's northwest quadrant. Here to tell us about it is Brooke Edmondson, Director of Events and Venue Operations at Ancient City Farmstead. She joins us by phone. Brooke, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So this is the second year of the Ancient City Christmas Experience. It's located at the Ancient City Farmstead. Tell us a little bit about the farmstead, where it is, what it offers, and how it got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So the farmstead is about 5 minutes from World Golf Village off International Golf Parkway. It's a beautiful, it is a farm. The property owners are all family. And it is now turned into an event venue where we're offering mostly community festivals, but we do have spaces for weddings and corporate events, and it is a beautiful little charming farm out in St. Augustine.
Yeah. And was there a sense that the community was ready for some sort of alternative that maybe was a little bit less congested, or perhaps just was able to reach a different part of the community as opposed to the more traditional venue downtown, the events downtown?
Yes, I would definitely say so. World Golf Village area has grown tremendously over the last several years. So it's really nice to have something that's a little bit off the beaten path, that you don't have to fight traffic. We have on-site parking. It doesn't take long to get there from Jacksonville or St. Augustine. So it's a great little kind of hidden gem, I think.
And one of the attractions you have there, this is the second year you've done this, is this really, I think you call it kind of a Rockefeller-esque Christmas tree, but it is the largest, certainly in the region, and one that is impressively lit every night. Is that right?
Yes, correct. The tree is 53 feet tall this year, and it actually comes from the company that gets the Rockefeller tree. So that's kind of where the name came from. So it's really fun. We bring it in on a semi-truck. It's driven down from New York, and we have to get a crane to lift it. And we light it every single night around 5:45, 6 o'clock, and Santa brings the magic and lights the tree. It's really awesome.
And there's also, this year, Jacksonville in downtown has its first ice skating rink. You all have an outdoor ice skating rink as well, somewhat larger than the one that is here in downtown Jacksonville. And I'm guessing that for people, including children that grow up without ever seeing snow, that's been a pretty popular attraction.
Absolutely. The rink does stay, so ours is synthetic ice, so we can kind of have it up whenever we want to, which is really awesome, but it does skate like you're on real ice, and it looks like real ice, so it's really fun, and we can hold about 90 people on it, so it is very large, but people tend to love it.
And so this overall Christmas experience, we mentioned the tree, Santa is there, and so there's an opportunity for the kind of Santa interactions, the photos that people can do. What else is on offer besides the rink and the Santa experience?
Yeah, so we have what we call our reindeer games. So we have, I believe it's 8 different games that kids can come and play, and whether it's knocking the elf off the shelf or throwing snowballs at a snowman, ring toss with Rudolph, all those fun things, and they can win candy canes and little prizes. We also added letters to Santa's station this year, so, right before Santa leaves on the last night, he's going to take a big old sack of letters back to the North Pole with him for everybody to look at. We have hot chocolate. We even have some adult fun drinks. We added cranberry mistletoe margaritas to the experience this year, so that's really fun. We have hot chocolate, food trucks, and we're going to start this weekend streaming Christmas movies the whole time, actually.
And you can also buy a Christmas tree there, too. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. So the same place where the Rockefeller tree came from, they also sent down some 6 to 8 foot Christmas trees that you can purchase on site. You do not have to have a ticket to purchase the trees, but if you do have a ticket, you get a discount.
Okay, yeah, and it's worth pointing out, this is not a free venue. You can get the tree there, but if you want to attend to do the Santa stuff, to play the reindeer games, there is a admission price for children, both, and for adults as well. And then it is extra if you want to do things like the ice skating experience. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. The ice skating is the only thing that's an additional charge. Santa's house, the reindeer games, all that stuff is included. And then the tree, if you wanted to purchase a tree, that would be additional as well.
Sure. All right. Well, it's a fun second year. I'm sure you're seeing a great turnout. This is the second year, as we mentioned. It now continues through December 21st. It's Fridays from 5 to 9 and Saturdays and Sundays from 3 to 9. We've got a link on our website. Brooke Edmondson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great afternoon.
You do the same. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments, suggestions, or questions, you can reach out to us at firstcoastconnect.org. And while you're there, you can sign up to get our daily newsletter. It includes a breakdown of upcoming shows and topics delivered to your inbox every weekday afternoon. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapau. Our show is directed by Brady Quorum, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when our Media Roundtable breaks down the week's headlines, including a council member's efforts to keep a new city jail out of traditionally redlined neighborhoods. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com.